Michigan strengths and weaknesses. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. I am one of the post-game hosts and weekly contributors, Desmond. I am here with my partner Dre and also with the man himself, Mark Rogers. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Share the video out on social media. It helps the channel. We are striving and pushing to try to be the #1 team channel on the network. And also make sure to join Mark's main channel, The Voice of College Football, and also join his Discord to join the discussion that is going on right now. So Dre, how we doing, man? What's going on?
Doing really well. Another week closer to college football. I think we are under. I think what were we 74 days, 73 days from kickoff. And when you put in those terms, hey, we're close. We're really close. Less than 3 months away. So 3 full months at least. So that's exciting. It's a big season. With I think headlines both from Michigan and nationally. Some huge coaching changes. We got Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly. Not Chip Kelly, but Brian Kelly. Excuse me, down at LSU. You got Lincoln Riley at USC. You got Ohio State. What's Ohio State going to do? Are they going to bounce back? They're taking some hits. They got a great test versus Notre Dame. You got Michigan. They're returning Big Ten champs for the first time since 2004. So I think about those things as we get closer to kickoff, and we got Texas A&M and this huge impact they made at recruiting, and this quote unquote beef that he has now with Nick Saban. How does Saban Alabama respond to losing the national title? Is Georgia going to repeat? I think there's a lot of interesting headlines going into this season. Now, if you really think about it, that it's like, wow, it could be a season of change, and definitely shocks. I believe that.
Okay. You said a lot there. So
Sorry,
first,
sorry. I want to.
the
I bovate there.
no,
Sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. No, I wanted to make sure to address the first part because yes, we were like 70 some odd days from kickoff, and it is bittersweet for me because I love the warm weather in the summertime,
Oh,
but I also
absolutely.
love football season as well. So it's kind of that conundrum of it's good and bad. So yes, I there's nothing better than football season. But I do love the summertime. Living in Michigan, it lasts about 2 whole months, and then we're back to being pretty chilly again. So, yeah, no, in yeah, it'll be an interesting season. So excited to see how it goes. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm good. And with everything that Dre was running down there, I'm just trying to keep track. So I want to get this straight here. So Ohio State's needing to bounce back from the 11-2 season.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Look. When
I
you
agree with you, but I'm just trying to make sure we know what the standards are in both camps. So you'd be happy with an 11-2 season, right?
um, yeah, well, given the context how last season ended, yes, because
Okay.
you got to take steps. I think it'll be unrealistic for me to say, man, you better repeat or bust, or you better win 12 11 to 12 games or bust. No, I mean, you don't go from to be honest with you, Mark, you don't go, and I could take it. You don't go from being a doormat of your biggest rival and them being the big dog on campus to flipping that and just after one win. You have to do it semi consistently. So I think Ohio State, yeah, based on the standard that y'all have set from your success, yeah, you're right. Last year was a colossal failure, and you need this year to quote unquote right the ship based on your standard.
Okay.
Mark, how do you feel about
Some
that
may have to
comment?
like it.
I kind of like that. I like having high standards, and despite what happened last year, I hear various things from Michigan fans in regards to what the standard is, or maybe a new standard. Where Ohio State fans seem to be a little more, based on the feedback I get, seem to be a little bit more consistent in their perspective on, okay, what's a good season, what do we expect, versus Michigan fans. and that's not a knock on Michigan fans because every individual has their own outlook on, but because there weren't championships before that, and now a lot of people have jumped to, well, the standard is you get to the playoff, and some others are more in your camp where, this is, we got to see this again. We got to see whether this takes hold and we're taking over the conference or not. A lot of your Michigan brethren, Dre, believe that Michigan's taken over the conference, and that's fine. They technically have. They're the champions.
Right. Well, no, I mean, look, for 1 year, we definitely have the crown. Look, I've been talking a lot of crap, especially to my father-in-law and that side of my family who are Ohio State fans, because look, we were well aware of the history, but we are the champs as of now. I mean, you're a champion till you're not anymore, till someone takes the crown. So absolutely, Michigan fans, we should walk around with pride and happiness and gloat because you deserve it. But at the same time, recognize the historical context with what it means and the impact and the changing of the tide. For there to be a true change of the tide, we need to win a couple more times. We need to reestablish ourselves as a true player for winning the Big Ten and beating Ohio State on a semi-regular basis. No, I didn't say all the time. I think that Ohio State's dominance of this series has been abnormal. It's for, I think, a rivalry to have the. And I know Mark in his stats, he'll probably go into seeing when Michigan under Bowl. It was lopsided, but you would think the way as good as both these programs are, that it should be more of a little bit of a balance, right? And I would assume, Michigan, if they're humming even close to Ohio State's level in terms of consistency, that we should. What is it hard to ask for that we win 4 out of the next 10 years, right? Maybe Ohio State gets 6. Or something on that ratio. I can accept that. I think that's going or splitting. I think that's being on an even basis. I think it'd be too much to ask for. Oh, it's our time. Now we're going to kick you guys butts. Every year for the next 20 years. I just think that's unrealistic to expect. And if I was, I guess, an Ohio State fan 20 years ago, I think that would be ridiculous to expect that. Just out of respect for my opponent. So. That's just kind of where I look at it.
Yeah, the rivalries, I mean, when you look at them, for as evenly matched as Michigan and Ohio State are, in what I would consider pretty evenly matched, even though the results have been different, you would think that there would be more of a balance in the before last year, in that stretch. And like you mentioned, Dre, it has been abnormal because you look at even. Oklahoma, Texas. Even though Oklahoma was winning the conference just again and again and again, a lot of times those games went back and forth. I think Kyler Murray, the year he was at Oklahoma, I think they lost to Texas in the regular season, but ended up beating them in the Big 10 or the Big 12 championship game. So even in that rivalry in 1 year, it's a 1-to-1 game. So. It definitely has been abnormal, but I think this year will be big for Michigan to see a couple things. Number one, how they handle that success. Like I've talked about it last couple of weeks of having that target on your back, and I know most Michigan fans are going to say that there always is one just because of the pride of the fan base and the team, and I do understand that, and I do think there was an element of that even before last year happened. But I think there's going to be another level to it because they're the defending Big Ten champions. And until a Big Ten champion is crowned by the end of December, you are still going to be that. So I think that brings another level of just having that target. So being able to handle that adversity and just handle that, just the perception that teams are really going to want to beat you. I mean, more so than they have before.
Say how it is. They want to go at your neck. That's just how it is. When you are the champion, teams want to take you out, and let's add an extra layer to it as well. Michigan as a fan base, as a university, sometimes our ways can rub some other programs and fan bases the wrong way. We're already seen as arrogant. We're seen as entitled, if you will, or not entitled. I would say not into reality, I guess, because we like to. Des, you send me a text how Alabama's gained on us for the total most wins program in the history of college football. Like So look, people want to see us go down. They like to see us down, right? So you best believe you're going to get everyone's best shot, and you know what? And I like that. I like it. It's much easier and fun to get that kind of hate when you have something behind it. I like it now. I welcome it because you know what? No, fine, talk about us. We're the champions. You want to knock us off? Let's do it, right? Because now we finally have some substance, recent substance, behind that hate, so uh, it's foreign territory though. It's definitely foreign territory, and a long time for me as a fan, and it is for that program. How do they handle that? Are they able to instill that same level of consistency and focus week after week for these players? Are they hungry because they feel, look, once you get to the CFP, I like to believe that, you're like, we have a chance to win a national title. And when you lose in the CFP, it should hurt and you should feel like, you know what, we fell short. Not that, oh, we did everything we set out to do. Even if it was your goal at the beginning of the year, like it was in Michigan, a realistic goal. So I would hope that Donovan Edwards and K. McNamara, J.J. McCarthy, Roddy Bell, who missed all year, he came back for a reason. All these guys, Blake Corum, I will hope that they come into the season fired up and feel like, you know what, we're not satisfied. We had a great year, but let's win the whole thing. And I would like to see that intensity and that focus week after week. Don't mess around the first 3 to 4 weeks against that cupcake schedule. Blow the teams off the field and do it efficiently in the most dominant fashion as possible, right? Take that next step. Go with Iowa and win by 2 touchdowns, right? 17 points. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I want to see.
2 quick things before we continue. One would be that I was on with our buddy Steve Dace yesterday. He hit me with 5 reasons why Michigan's going to beat Ohio State again this year. So he hit me with those 5, and I think for the first 4, I punched back and counterpunched pretty well. The last one, I gave it up to him, so you'll have to check that out, everybody. So again, that's on Michigan Podcast. Steve and I going back and forth on Ohio State, Michigan. And as Des mentioned off the top, we've got a Discord. So what you do there is you go to Patreon and you search Mark Rogers TV. You sign up for Discord. You sign up for Patreon. We get you a Discord link. You can do what you're doing right here in the live chat. You can do that all the time. You can do that at 3 in the morning. You can do that whenever. We got about 55 or 60 college football fans on there, and we hope to make that like 500 or 600 college football fans by the time we get to the season, so you can talk college football all the time. And then the other note would be that we today are simulcasting on the main channel. The reason we do that from time to time is to remind everyone, hey, we got a Michigan show, and we are there every Wednesday, 5 Eastern. So don't rely on it being here all the time. We want to push you folks on over to our Michigan channel. And so please join us every Wednesday at 5. That's your place to be. Every Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern, to talk to these guys directly. Yes.
And we love to have you.
Yeah.
So I had I want to kind of give our viewers a little preview behind the scenes a bit. So us 3 are in a group chat, and we text throughout the week as far as more so coming up to the stream, like, hey, what do we want to cover? What do we want to talk about? And so I shot a question into the group text, and Dre just swooped in with probably the best question that we could possibly cover today. I had dropped it on the channel as a post of just one side of it, the question of what is it that Michigan does really well as a program? Like, what is something that they can hang their hats on? And what is something that they don't do well that they need to improve on as a program overall, not just a single year, but just what they do as a program. So Number one, I thought that was a great question by Dre. Just he's been dropping gems. He's back. He's on fire. I think having his little daughter has just really inspired. He's just got a flame burning inside of him. I don't know if it's lack of sleep or what it is, but it's been
Changes,
awesome.
man. Certain changes.
But I'll toss it to you first because you posed the question and we chatted a little bit about it today. But I'll toss it to you. You know, pick your strength or weakness, or if you want to go through both and kind of roll from there.
Yeah, I'll go through both. So it's when you take a step now that you take a step back and you look at the University of Michigan program, and look, fact of the matter is there's no real perfect program. There's always something if you really take a good look at it. Some have a lot more strengths than others. Some have more weaknesses than others. But if you really pay attention, there has to be something that you can pick and say, what that could take us to the next level, or that is holding us back. I mean, even Alabama, as dominant as Deck says, Alabama fan, as dominant as y'all had as a program down there, there's definitely things that that you could improve on, because if it wasn't, then you would win every single year. There's some hole that you could fill. So for Michigan, as a Michigan fan, and I'll stick to the last, I'll stick to the Harbaugh era, because that's the era we're in. That's the era we're going to stay in. Looks like for the foreseeable future. Unless he gets the NFL itch again, which he says he never will, but we never know with Jimmy. I would say one thing that they do well is that they seem to find a way to get hitting gems in their recruiting, and then find a way to get these kids to play above their perceived potential, and on the college ranks, and in some cases have them find a spot on the next level in the NFL. I think about recent history, like guys like Hassan Haskins. Hassan Haskins came as a 2 to 3 star running back. He was not recruited very highly because he's not fast. This is out of his own words, and a lot of schools didn't think he had what it takes, the speed to be a big time running back in college football. And he proved that wrong. He went to Michigan. The coach staff saw him, identified him, and they gave him opportunity, and he ran with it. I think about Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell in high school was pretty much a basketball player. That was his number one sport, if I'm not mistaken. I think he did play football as well, but football wasn't his number one sport growing up. And they identified him. He wasn't highly ranked coming out of high school, and they helped turn him into, I think, a legitimate, really good college receiver. We don't know if he has a future in the NFL, but I think if before his injury last year, he was probably top 7, top 10 receiver in the conference. I think that's pretty good. So I think about Chase Winovich. Chase Winovich was not highly ranked coming out of high school. He went to Michigan, identified him, to give him an opportunity, to help him develop, and now he not only was a really good college player, but now he's found a role in the NFL. I think about gosh, help me. Do you guys remember his first name? One of the Glasgow brothers, just the latest one. He was
Graham, I think.
No, Graham's a guard. He's the youngest Glasgow brother. Guys, you can help me in the chat. Please do that. He's the youngest of the Glasgow brothers. He's not nearly as big as they are. Wasn't a high recruit coming out of high school. And I mean, for God's sakes, Mr. Mustache, Dr. Blitz, had him at times playing on the line, even though he was, clearly a linebacker size. About now he plays, I believe, for the Colts. That's a special teams player. My point is that they do a really good job of fighting hidden gems and helping kids get better than times they were perceived coming out of high school. Now, on the flip side of that, they also ought to digest. The flip side of that, I think they can get better at the times when they do get these highly ranked recruits, these 5-star kids, right? You're not going to bat 1,000. Recruit the high-star kid. He's a great player and all as well. But I just feel like at times when we get the 4-star, the 5-star kids from transfer or recruiting, they're underwhelming more times than not at Michigan. I think about guys like Shea Patterson. Underwhelming. I won't call him a bust. I won't say he was terrible, but very underwhelming. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones was underwhelming at Michigan. He had moments. Not call him a bust. He was a solid player, but I think he had a lot more in the tank. And I think you saw that once he got to the NFL. He was a 6th round pick by the Browns, and he ended up being a contributing player. and I believe actually starting for them before he got hurt last year. Like, and showing and making plays and doing things that he never showed at Michigan on a consistent basis. So I mean that bothers me. I don't like to see those type of things. Rashawn Gary. We bring this kid in. He's the best player in the country. And he's a solid player, a good player for Michigan, but he wasn't the best defensive lineman in the country. Never at any point. I never felt that he was viewed nationally as an impact player in terms of game record, not like a Jonathan Allen, not like a Joey Bosa, not like a Aiden Hutchinson, never on that level, right? So I think that's an area that Michigan can improve on. Because if you're able to get the hidden gems and help them get better, oh my God, can you imagine what your program would be when you do get the highly ranked kids and they get their potential? Now you're talking about being on the elite level. So that's where I kind of view them. I think they've done a good job with the lesser kids and could do better with the higher ranked kids.
Okay. I think those are really solid. And you threw me for a loop with this question, but before I go, definitely want to address Antoine Johnson. Thank you so much for the super chat. And also too, Antoine, you mentioned you were on a different podcast. Come on, man. We need you here. You're here with us every week. You're here on when we had the game day stream. Like you're always with us, man. We gotta get something set up with Antoine. But his question is, what do y'all think about Michigan possibly running some type of Bill Walsh old school 49ers offense? I think it will be deadly. I agree, 100%.
The West Coast offense?
Yeah, like a West Coast. That's what Bill Walsh and the Niners ran, like West Coast. Yes, I agree. I think it would be pretty deadly, especially with the personnel that I think Michigan has offensively. I think the offense will be the strength of the team this year if we're just only talking offense and defense. I think they have the weapons to be really dynamic. So I agree. I think an offensive style like a West Coast would be helpful. The only thing I would caution is not that I don't think who I assume will eventually be the starter in JJ. It's not that I don't think he can grasp that playbook, but you want to be careful in how much you change, especially when you want. The goal is to have JJ come in and be extremely comfortable. I think the most comfortable position he could be in is running an offense that he knows everything front to back. That would be the only caveat that I would give, but I agree with Antoine. I think having that style of offense would definitely benefit Michigan and could take them kind of to that next level that we were talking about.
Yeah, look, the West Coast offense has been very successful in the NFL. One guy has been famous for running is Andy Reid. In recent history, he's taken the West Coast offense. Not so much he's taken that philosophy in Kansas City, but definitely with Philadelphia, with guys like Jonathan McNabb. He was famous for doing the West Coast offense. There's been a lot of coaches and a lot of great players have been successful with that. But just in terms of consistency, I wouldn't want to change any schematics right now. I think the best thing that we can continue to do with JJ and even Cade is to stay in the spread type of offense, spread scheme, using our speed, using our athleticism. Because at the end of the day, playing this style, it spreads the defense apart, and it just allows for more weapons, more things for the defense to account for, and also it can help hide certain weaknesses. As opposed to with a West Coast offense, you need to have a good offensive line. I actually believe you need a really good tight end as well. And I just think that you have to make sure you hit on certain aspects in terms of recruiting and player development compared to the spread. You can get away with a spread offense having a average offensive line if your receiving core is really good. So I rather not make any big changes schematically on offense right now. But in theory, I definitely see why it could be beneficial.
Mark, what say you?
So this is the West Coast offense that we could argue actually originated in Ohio when Bill Walsh was the offensive coordinator for Paul Brown with the Cincinnati Bengals.
I don't think that's what
That's
Anton
when
was,
he devised
was
that.
trying to think about when he brought that up, Mark.
Well,
But thank you.
I'm just trying to make sure everybody's accurate on their
Accuracy is
facts
important.
and the origin of all this. So, yeah, Bill Walsh was the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals under Paul Brown and developed with other people, just like anything else that's become legendary and great. It's typically not one person, and it you know, a number of different origins of it. But when I think West Coast, this is the other thing that happens is when there's been a term around for so long that I kind of lose track on what are we talking about here. So the West Coast offense originally in the NFL was devised because teams determined, and Dre hit on this, is that the offensive line, you know, there was a brute force game in the 50s and 60s. If you had an offensive line that wasn't quite as good, you wanted to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and you couldn't dominate in the running game. And so if you had a quarterback and receivers that were really at a high skill development, that the concept was we're going to run the ball less, but we're going to use a short passing game as an extension for the run. And we're going to do that because our quarterback has a quick release. He can get the ball out of his hands. We don't have to rely on him standing in the pocket, patting the football 3 times before he delivers it downfield. And so it's just an idea of extending the running game to the perimeter and doing it by throwing the football. Yeah, I don't think that really translates a lot to what's going on today and what Michigan's running. You wouldn't have seen Joe Montana ever in a shotgun spread formation, for one thing, nor was there ever a running quarterback who was the guy running a West Coast offense. So, yeah, there's certainly concepts of it, absolutely, that can be adopted to take advantage of what could be the best Michigan wide receiver core that we've seen top to bottom in terms of depth and number of players that we've seen. So, yeah, absolutely. In certain ways, yeah.
Okay, perfect. The strengths and weaknesses. Goodness, did I forget? Well, we changed topics a little bit, so that kind of threw me off.
Strengths and weaknesses. Yeah.
So the one I would pick is I think their defensive aggression. I think that has been a pretty big constant for Michigan, especially in the Harbaugh era. Unfortunately, you know, with Don Brown, the lack of adjustments has hurt them in big spots. But even with that, I think when you look at the success that they've had as far as rankings with their defense, like they have put together a pretty good defense when it comes to the rankings. And you know, Harbaugh's had, obviously, it's been well documented, his challenges with, you know, ranked teams on the road, things like that. But overall, that is a difficult thing to manage. And I think it'd be inaccurate just to put that all on the defense. But I think their style of defense of just aggressive, I think they've blitzed less since Don Brown has been gone. You know, so I don't think they're as heavy of a all-out blitz man team as they used to be. But overall, I feel like their style of defense is aggressive. And obviously, I think that's a really good way to play defense overall. So I would say that is their strength and something that they can hang their hat on. The thing that I would say they struggle with would be consistency. And I know that's probably something that could be said about every single football team, but just the consistency of just, number one, week in and week out, but just year in and year out. You know, we saw, and this was pre-Jim Harbaugh, but we saw Dre, and I think we talked about this last week on the stream, but, you know, the Devin Gardner game against Ohio State. I mean, that team was bad. That Michigan team was bad. And you know, they're a 2-point conversion away from, you know, upsetting Ohio State, who I think was 1 or 2 at that time. Like, it was a really good Ohio State team. So, of course, he had changes and things like that happened afterwards. But just, I think the level of consistency on a yearly basis, on a week-to-week basis, is something that I think it's something that they can improve on. And you know, to kind of reiterate the point I made earlier, it's going to be crucial this year to make sure that they have that consistency every single week, because outside of the first 4 weeks of the season, after that, every other game essentially on the schedule, you have the potential to lose. Like I think Michigan's a really good team, but we see it week in and week out, and Mark's made comments on it that you can look at the top 25 and basically, I think he said 20% of those teams are going to lose, get upset. So yes, there is a certain cachet that you have because you're going to be probably ranked top 5, preseason, but you also have to beware because that happens on a regular basis of, top teams getting upset. We saw Clemson lose in week 1. We saw, Alabama lose to Texas A&M, and the list goes on of those top ranked teams, losing. So
Well,
I think that'll be important.
wait, you're not talking about last year. I mean, that was because they eventually actually lost to when it ended up being the national champions. Were they ranked number 1 last year?
And they lost plenty more games than that. The point still stands.
Yeah, I know. I get your point, but yeah, I'm just saying that's kind of unfair. Like Clinton, Georgia. I thought it was a great game. You thought it was trash. 7-14 was it?
No, it was 10-3. The only touchdown scored was a defensive touchdown.
I knew it was a touchdown difference. So anyway,
but nonetheless, the point still stands.
Yeah, the point stands. No, I get it. And yes, consistency, and they do a really good job with their defensive approach. For me, it's never been about the defense. Ever since Rich Rod's been gone, I never really had an issue with the defense for Michigan. It's been more, except for the Dan Brown, Dr. Blitz. Dude, come on, man. What is this? NCAA 14. What you just gonna do? You can do an all-out blitz all day. No, this isn't a video game. People adjust. And this isn't some kind of cheat code where you just do it and it's going to work every time. But whatever, no, it's offense philosophy, because especially in college football, offense is king. You got to have some defense, but you got to be able to put up points, and you got to be able to do it efficiently. So that's where the center of focus is and should continue to stay, because you got to have that. You can get away with an average or solid defense and go pretty far. You may not be able to win a national title, but you can go pretty far as long as your offense is top notch, top 5 offense, right? I definitely see a point there, Des. But I just think that they can. They're. I say this every week. They're at this crossroads, in my opinion, where they have established last year, beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten, puts them at this point where they now have a banner. They've beaten their biggest rival. If they can get them for a second year in a row, maybe win another Big Ten title, maybe now you are showing that you are a true player, and on a consistent basis, being in the college football playoff. And that's the case, then you're a true player and contender for maybe winning a national title. I just think this is a momentum type year where they can just somehow capitalize on that. Maybe they can kind of change the tide, and we're able to start swinging some of those big time recruits and say, hey, you can win a national title here at Michigan. We haven't done it yet, but it's possible. We play at the highest level at the end of the season. You know what I'm saying? So I can't stress it enough. I just think that this year's a grand opportunity. I think Mark D'Antonio at MSU had a grand opportunity after 2015. Unfortunately, it was at the end of it was towards the end of his run at MSU more than it was the middle, where he really picked up momentum in the program and took it to another level. Can you imagine if Mark D'Antonio was in the middle of his tenure at MSU, and then they go to the college football playoff, and what he would have been able to potentially do and ride that wave going forward? It's I just think that it's rare air, and I just don't want to go back to how things were. I think they have a chance to not just be Ohio State 1, then it's 2, 3, 4, some jump between Michigan State, Penn State, and Michigan, right? I want to be in that 1A, 1B range, us and Ohio State, and then it's MSU and Penn State and everyone else. I think they have a really good opportunity to take that next step.
Mark, what are your thoughts on the strengths and weaknesses that we mentioned, and do you have your own that you think Michigan could say they, or that you think that they can hang their hat on, or things that need to improve?
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that's been said about strengths or weaknesses. The strength that I'll go to is the brand. So if you look at the Block M and you look at the Michigan brand, and a huge component of it has to do with football, but it's not just football, it's academics, it's the university and the reputation the university's built as a school, the money that comes with that, of building up that type of reputation, that type of academic status nationally, the basketball program at times, all of that athletic prowess, top to bottom, even in the Olympic sports. So beyond just nationally, worldwide, it's one of the strongest brands athletically and academically in the country. So that's the strength that I first and foremost thought of when I saw Dre's question. The weakness, and this is relatively speaking, because of course we're not comparing Michigan to Illinois. We're comparing Michigan to what we think the standard should be in the conference and beyond. And I would say that the recruiting's not bad. I wouldn't say that it's top 10 good, but as I've kind of explained at different times in outlining the recruiting, that there is a difference between a top 3 or 4 recruiting class and a top 10 recruiting class. And when that gets piled on top of each other, for one particular class, there's a gap. But when you talk about 2 and 3 and 4, and then five rosters or 5 classes are comprised in a roster, I think that widens the gap. And I think Michigan, when you see Ohio State has gotten 3 commits in the top 50 in the last 3 days. And I just think that there's a recruiting gap there that it's not all about just talent acquisition, but that's a huge portion of it. I don't know what the percentage is. Is it 70%, 75%? You got to obviously get them on campus. You got to develop them. You got to coach them, prepare them for the games, and you got to make adjustments during the games. There's a lot more to it than just rolling the ball out. But I do think that they, because of where they are located and because of what Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, those 3 primarily, and then you see hits from Texas A&M and Clemson and LSU, that they're operating at a deficit there.
Yeah, and that's where the big C word is what comes to mind: culture. And the best way that you can you can't close that gap in terms of the recruiting ranking unless you actually get the recruits. However, you can help close that gap on the field by culture and player development. Are you able to you get more, you get 3 stars compared to one program getting more 4 stars, but are you able to have some of those 3 stars outshine those 4 stars because you're able to find out, hey, you know what, this kid has hidden talent. Maybe they still going through a growth spurt. Maybe they just need to be in the weight room a little bit more, and it takes their game to another level. Are you able to instill a certain tenacity and focus every Saturday in which your team plays like their hair's on fire? They play tough, they play mean, they play smart. They don't beat themselves. All those small things help and definitely translate on the field, and they can make the difference because you can have 4.2 speed, but my corner runs your receiver runs a 4.2, my corner runs a 4.5. But if my corner is smart and understands, how to play coverage and how to rotate the hips and how to read the quarterback, how to read the receiver, read their routes, read their breaks, that can make all the difference in the world. Like Richard Sherman is not a very fast corner. He never has been, but he's extremely intelligent, so it's like all those things matter at receiver, like you don't have to run super fast to be a good receiver. You need some speed, but it's all about coming out of your breaks. I think Cooper Kupp, the Super Bowl. He wasn't the MVP. It was Matt. What was it? It was Stafford that was the MVP, wasn't it? It should have been Cup. To be quite honest with you, but maybe I'm a Stafford hater. The reason I'm bringing it up is that Cooper Cup, I think, ran like a 4.5. But he looks a lot faster than that on the field. So I'm talking about the things that were going to a kid's quote unquote recruiting ranking. Oh my God, 5-star speed, right? 5-star size, right? But there's a lot more that goes into it. So I think that is things that Michigan can do better at, and they can help close that gap. You probably would never recruit at the level that Ohio State does, but that shouldn't be an excuse to not beat them more. Because it goes back to Mark's point about strength. You have the brand, you have the block M, and that matters. You're not at least you don't have, both things working against you. At least you don't have on the field results working against you and lack of brand recognition. People will always recognize that block M. So that's one foot in the door. So if you can start to win on a semi-regular basis, now you're really talking about, like as I said, changing things, changing the tide.
Well, you mentioned one word that can close the gap. I've got 3 letters that can help close the gap, and that's NIL. Because you can't sit on the sideline and just not do anything. And it sounds like they're kind of working on that, but you just can't. Like you can't. It's just it's a brand new landscape, and you can't just sit back and do nothing. A lot have been made of Texas A&M and their class and the NIL deals and things like that. Whatever the case may be, they haven't done anything wrong, and it seems clear that they are dishing out some NIL deals. It seems that way. I could be wrong, but that is what it seems like. They haven't done anything wrong, but they are you look at the class that they are bringing in versus the class of everyone else, but obviously we're talking about Michigan. It makes a difference. And we talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago, but if I'm looking at 2 elite level schools, let's say Texas A&M and Michigan, and it's pretty close as far as the things that I want, that I think both of these schools can get me, right? Basically a path to the NFL. If I can get there with both, but one school is going to pay me whatever, let's say $50,000 a year via an NIL deal, and one school is not. Well, that makes it really hard to choose the school that's not going to pay me anything, when the avenue in my path is going to be the same. If I'm an elite defensive end, I can go to Texas A&M, and I'm pretty sure they're going to develop my talent. They've put defensive ends in the NFL, and I know I will develop and get the coaching that I need, right? Nutrition program, all that good stuff, and I will get the same things at Michigan that I know I can go there. I can play in big games. I know I can. They've put defensive ends in the NFL. I know I'll get the coaching, develop nutrition. Everything is exactly the same, but this one will pay me $50,000 a year, and this one won't. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So, granted, you don't want to. The goal is not to just buy this kid or whatever. I think for most kids, it's not going to be a highest bidder. But when it comes to it, I think it matters. I think it matters. So that is something that also can help close the gap when you're talking about trying to get to that next level. And maybe it's not you get 5 stars. Maybe you get 2, but those 2 that you have are game changers and program changers. A lot of times that's all you need to get to that next level.
It's about changing perception, too. And kids see what happens to other kids in front of them, right? If you're a 5-star receiver, why do you think Ohio State gets so many 5-star receivers, right? Because Ohio State is a machine. They recruit these kids, they play at a high level, they perform, they get the stats, they get the film, and then they get drafted to NFL. It's it's not just an emotional decision. It's a transactional. It's a business decision. That's what a lot of these highly ranked kids are making, business decisions. If you are a defensive end, there's only a few places that you want to go. You want to go to Ohio State, you want to go to Alabama, you want to go to Georgia, right? Because that's where you see the kids that look just like you, that have the rankings like you do. You see how their career and their career trajectory is working out for them, and you want to follow suit. And then you add on top of that, now there are certain financial incentives in the moment that you can get right away, oh yeah, it makes that decision even easier. So those are the factors that Michigan is working against them. You have to continue to, and they've done a good job of that. Like I'm not saying they haven't, but you have to continue to change that. Seeing a kid like Donovan Edwards, who I believe was a 4-star running back, become, and Blake Corum, seeing them possibly, like you've seen Hassan Haskins, seeing those kids get to have great college careers, get to the NFL, you know what? It helps you get in the door for those maybe 5-star running backs now, right? Maybe you're able to get more of them on your campus. You obviously love to run the football. That's good for them, right? Because especially as a running back nowadays, look, if you have, you're going to be running back the rest of your career, you're like, well, I need to get drafted as high as possible in the NFL because I might not get another contract. So that first contract, we were just talking about Kerryon Johnson. We joke about him. That's, I think, as Lions fans, me and Dez, like, the dude was a 2nd-round pick out of Auburn. He literally is out of football after his rookie contract. I don't
even think he finished his rookie contract either.
He didn't finish it. So it's like, yeah, you want to get in the first round. You want to get your best chance possible to get drafted as high as you can. So I was kind of a tangent, but I'm just saying, like, all these things matter. It is a business. It's not just that's why I get so upset when I see Michigan, like guys like Ward Manuel and Harper talk about what it's a transformative experience, not just a transactional or something like that. Like, no, it needs to be both. This is a business decision for these kids. Well, great. Yeah, we're a Michigan man. Yeah, but that's only a small part of their life. And like they're not thinking about just that. They're all thinking about they're trying to play in the NFL. That's what it's about. They're trying to win in college and get to NFL as soon as they can. So you have to think like that. You have to think as a business. It's not just you have to separate the university and your football program. Football needs to be number one. Winning and football has to be the number one priority, and making sure you're doing everything you can to be successful in that. Michigan, we're a great academic school. We have all these values. That's all good and well, and I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. Do everything within legal bounds to make sure you are successful. And I'm not saying that they're not, but I would not be able to accept anything less. And that's what I asked them to do. If it takes playing and figure out ways to get more involved in NIL and maybe it's finding more deals for these kids, for all the different type of boosters that you have from alumni, then do that. You need to be able to leverage that. Look what MSU is doing with United Mortgage or United Shores Mortgage with what's the guy from MSU? He's the owner of that. Why am I drawing Matt Ispia? He's an alumni MSU. He donates on campus. He's I don't know, man. It's just, and he's helped create these deals for MSU athletes. Like all that stuff matters, man. I just want them to do whatever they can to win as much as they can on the field. I don't accept falling in second or third place because we have some kind of moral superiority. That doesn't matter to me, right? So, and I will hope the rest of the fan base feels the same way. We all want to feel good on Saturdays, so do what you gotta do to get that done.
Yeah, agreed. And there was a couple questions that came in, so I'm going to just kind of real quick hit them. D-Rock Irish put 4-star receiver Cam Williams, I think it was, is announcing his commitment next week at this time. Looks like Michigan's in the top 5, Notre Dame, I think Cincinnati. But nonetheless, one thing that I will say is what probably is not going to be his decision, but one thing that probably factors into there is CJ Carr committing to Notre Dame. I would imagine that is something that crosses his mind when he thinks about where he's going to go. So we'll see about that. I don't know. I'm not huge into recruiting, so I don't know where the young man's leaning or the crystal ball, which once again, that's crazy how these guys know all this stuff. And then another question was, has Cade peaked? I'm a JJ fan, but want to win. My answer is going to be a cop out because I don't think we've seen the best of Cade McNamara just due to the amount of reps or pass attempts that he gets. Because if you tell me the Michigan State game is peak Cade McNamara, then I will tell you he absolutely has not peaked. But if you tell me it's Georgia, that is the best he could possibly do, then I would say yes. I'm not sure that Cade has peaked, but I think at his average, so what he is probably going to be, I would say JJ would be better, and I would say at JJ's peak would way outweigh Cade's potential peak. So, Dre, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that we was clamoring throughout last year, Des, and we were going to war with our own listeners and subscribers every week because Michigan was winning on most weeks, and people wanted to know why we were quote unquote complaining about the offensive
15 pass
output,
attempts that Cade
right?
McNamara
The
had
lack
in
of
2 weeks.
balance with the offensive attack. And granted, they started to expand the playbook and expand, and use to play the passing attack more down the stretch of the season. But I do agree that it does kind of make you wonder. Well, is there more left in Cade McNamara in terms of if they are more of a balanced offense, if they kind of let them rip it a little bit more? Like and if that's the case, what does that result in? Is it So I do agree. I mean, I do wonder, can Cade make some of those throws if he got more of the repetitions to do so, right? I think JJ is the new hotness. He has the flash. He has the eye-popping athletic ability and also arm. So it's easier to say, man, what can we be with that kid? But so I think on surface level, it's easy to see that JJ is the more talented kid and that the trajectory of the program could be higher if he starts. But I can't say for sure Cade is peaked because I don't think he's been given the opportunities in terms of the offensive philosophy to show everything he possibly can do. I think they put, quote unquote, shackles on him to kind of keep him from hurting himself. Based on how the lack of taking certain shots down the field and stuff like that. So, but I'm sorry, I got to bring this up because I've seen something that really kind of ticked me off in the comment section when I was going on my soliloquy about Michigan doing everything they can do to win.
And then I'll get to this that's ticking me off.
Yeah, sure. So, so Dave Snoo there, MSU fan beating MSU doesn't mean anything. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that, Dave. Hold on. Let me pick one of the comments that this person said that it's just I just couldn't disagree more. Let's see. All right, hold on. Give me 10 seconds here, guys, because this just drives me insane. Okay. Sure. No, we don't feel that way in terms of wanting Michigan to do all they can do to win. Winning at all costs is not winning. What the hell does that mean? The objective of sports is to win the game. Win the game.
To win.
And mind you, I said do all you can do. Yeah, but I said do all you can do within legal means.
Yeah.
And I don't believe the program is doing that.
Oh,
this is not 1970s, 1980s. NIL is legal. So you do whatever you can do by legal means to take advantage of that. I don't care about being morally superior. I'm not saying be a cheater. I'm not saying be dishonest. I'm not saying
I don't think anyone was saying that.
No one is saying that. But you best believe you should be doing everything you can legally to win as much as you can. Because that's what the history books talks about. No one cares. 2012. What did Michigan finish? Probably that was. I know that was under
8-5.
Huh? Thank you. No one cares if you have some. Hey, all of our kids were good students, and we didn't have any off the field issues and all the other good stuff. No one cares about that. They look at what's in the record books, what's in the trophy case, right? So, like, I get very upset about that. I'm not you separate the university and the sport. I just think that's how it should work, and that's how it works. Yeah, Dre's perspective is different. Football has no value. Football is the main driver of your attention to your program. That's why they drive so much money for these universities.
What I would say is in one of the poorest states in the United States, that Alabama football program, I can guarantee you there is value there. There is value.
I Why do you think when what do you see when most times when college football games are on, right? You see that college commercial come up. We are Georgia or something like that. You see the kids on campus and everybody's happy and smiling. They're in their science classes, doing their research, talking about what kind of impact they're making to society. That's normally on. I don't see that on during baseball games. I don't see those commercials on during basketball games. I see them doing football games because football is king. Everybody watches football. You get the most eyes. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
I completely agree with everything that you're saying, but technically speaking, those are on during all athletic events. They have to be.
No one pays attention.
I worked at ESPN. They're called institutionals. They have to be scheduled in every sporting event for every college. So they're there. But I totally agree with everything else that you're saying. I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm just saying, like I just. It just drives me insane. Like, no, like sports, like winning is the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that matters because that's what the history books are going to tell. Like, you're not going to look at, if you look at a 20-year span, you're not going to look at a particular year and you think about, man, we were really good kids that year. Like it's just, or you think about it, you'll think about, did we win anything or not? You think about, did we beat a rival? Did we get beat? You know what I think about 2018? 60 burger. That's what I think about. I think about my lowest moment as a Michigan fan. That's what I think about. I'm thinking about being on my father-in-law's couch and just being down as Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, throws another touchdown. That's what I think
on a
about.
crossing route, no less.
On a crossing route.
Gracious.
And poor Benjamin Watson, whatever his first name is,
yeah.
who somehow
catching strays out here.
Him just like him constantly seeing the back of his. I'm constantly seeing the back of his jersey. You know why? Because he's chasing another Ohio State receiver into the end zone. That's what I think about. I think about on the field stuff. I can't stand when people get on these moral high grounds. Just stop it. Stop. It's okay. Embrace the sport. Embrace the winning and losing. Be all in on winning. Be a winner.
All right, Mark, what's ticking you off? We got Dre rolling. What about you?
Well, I'm not going to go on that kind of rant. That was stellar. That was epic. I'm just going to simply say I lost the comment, so I'm not going to repost it here, but it was Rob J, who I appreciate Rob being here. He's on all over the place on our channels, but Rob was saying that something about Ohio State not being a national power.
Oh, yeah. He said something in 8 years, something.
So the only thing I'll say to that is when people take knocks at that level of program, I don't know what your definition is. We probably have one national power then. If you're going to exclude Ohio State from that list, then Alabama's on that list, I guess. They're your only national power, and then that's the end of the list. And that's fine if that's your list. Just understand that that's the list.
Yeah, no. Interesting. So, Dre, while you were talking, I took a look at, because we were talking about the Cade peak, has he peaked? So in 2021, he had 327 total pass attempts. And I took a look, and this may be a bad comparison, but for comparison, Bryce Young had 547 pass attempts. So when we talk about has he peaked, he really hasn't had a chance, to me, to really show what he can do. Now, part of me defers to the coaching staff of, well, he's not throwing the ball 30 times a game because we've seen him in practice throw it that much, and he tends to make mistakes. But I mean, in games, Cade does not make a lot of mistakes. He threw 6 interceptions last year. Now, on 350 attempts, that's not ideal, but 6 interceptions in what Michigan played 14 games last year. I mean, that's I can live with that. So I don't think Cade has peaked, but it doesn't get me as fired up as Dre was with the moral high ground. So
I just I
You're
just
passionate, man. I appreciate it. I'm here for it.
it's just because I, when I tune in, like a lot of people on Saturdays, like, and I saw Dave, and Dave's probably a good guy. I don't know you personally, Dave, but we do appreciate you being here. I'm sorry, but your comment just set me off. No, he brought up how like it doesn't matter. It's entertainment. Of course, well, yeah, sports is entertainment, but it's also emotional, and we all get emotionally tied to it. And also, look, what I think makes sports great is also just that it's more than not. It's matter of fact. After the final whistle blows and that result shows on the scoreboard, that's it. That's a story written in that moment, right?
Hmm.
And the things going into that game, and more or less, the things coming out of that game, it's just you know fodder around it. You know, and I don't know. I just think that, yeah, when you're watching the game, you're entertained, but you want to be on the right side of that history, and you just need to do everything you can to do that. When these kids suit up to play the game, it's not for their own entertainment. It's for their own drives, whether it's to win, whether it's to be successful. And as a fan, it, I want that from that. I want that for them. I want it for myself. I want it for my fellow fan bases, because Michigan is a very passionate fan base, you know, and we deserve to have, success. You have all this national attention, right? And guys like Colin Coherd and both Klatt, Joel Klatt, they're more than willing to carry Michigan's drink Michigan's bathwater and make and to puff up their name on their networks, and not fully tell things by how they are. They kind of skate around things when things are going bad, and they're more than willing to talk about how good things are going when they are going well. But I live in reality, and I just want that reality to be as successful as possible. And I just won't accept anything less, because you don't have to as a Michigan fan. You don't have to accept just, well, I just hope we have a good fun Saturday. No, Michigan should be a big dog. They should, and you should not accept anything like that. We're not fans of Purdue. No offense to my Purdue fans out there. We're not fans of Northwestern. We're not fans of you know I don't
Oregon
know,
State.
or Oregon State. Like, and shout out to the Beavers. We're not we're not fans of UNLV. I know that's just random. I'm just saying, like, you're fans of the University of Michigan. You have one of the biggest brands in college football. Act like it. And with that comes high expectations, a higher standard, and there should be outrage and hell to pay and questions answered when those standards are not being met. That's just how it is. And someone said my horse is pretty high. Thank you for that, Billy Tuesday. I'm not saying just because you expect it doesn't mean I'm saying that it's a given. So that's the difference. It's not being pompous and cocky. I don't believe it's a given. I want them to earn it. That's why I'm on them about what they do in recruiting, what they're doing Monday through Friday. Make sure you're earning it. You do whatever you can to get there, because it's not a given. So no, I expect I have a high standard, but I'm pushing and making sure they do what it takes to get that standard.
We got a wrap on that. I got nothing else to say. That was perfect.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Guys,
everybody
thank
for
you for
tuning
tuning
in.
in.
We definitely appreciate it. Man, that was golden. We just got to end on that. We will be back here next week, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for about an hour or so. So come join us. We appreciate it. That is it.
Peace.
Peace.